In today's vlog, I decided to do a reactions video, and I'm gonna apply to this lady. Veda Austin is her name, and she's a water researcher. So I'm gonna do a reactions video and apply the law of one tarot whenever I feel like it resonates. But this is fascinating. So let's start.
Fabulous. So shall I just share for the next 45 minutes?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Sure. Well, I am a water researcher and I've been studying water in its crystallographic form for the last 9 years. So essentially what I've discovered is that water is able to store information that's relative to its last influence. For example, I could put a shell into a petri dish of water, freeze it using my method of short-term crystallography, and in the ice I will see some kind of evidence of a shell. And I have over 64,000 photos of water responding in this intelligent manner. So this all began with my own curiosity about whether water could store information or not. Many people have heard of Masaru Emoto's work and his investigations into water and water crystals, and how, for example, he would take two glasses of water, one with the word hate and one with the word love. He would flash freeze a little bit of water from each and identify that the one with the word love would form beautiful geometries and the one with the word hate would fail to form structures. So really what he was doing was flash freezing water and then microscopically photographing it. There was another man by the name of Laurent Costa who was not so well known, but incredible man, and has become a friend of mine. He's a French photographer. He also took microscopic photographs of water, but he really thought of water as his spiritual teacher, and he didn't want to experiment on water. He really wanted water to share with him whatever it wanted. And so he would do things like smile at the water before he froze it microscopically and photograph it. And what he was getting in the microscopic photos was really remarkable. He was seeing happy faces, he was seeing hearts, he was seeing fish appear in the ice. And when I saw that, I was just so amazed, because it's one thing seeing geometries, because we're kind of used to seeing things like snowflakes and close-ups of snowflakes, and they're beautiful.
Okay, so water. Oh, right here, the potentiator, the subconscious mind, I believe is water, right? And right away, as she's talking, I'm thinking of the high priestess, obviously, who's sitting on the box, has the veil. Now, I also believe for the body complex that water is, the hermit is for the subconscious mind, the hermit is the potentiator. Now, this hermit is covered right up. But if you notice, he has a DNA strand on his, I don't know what that is. He has a DNA strand, though. And he's heavily covered. Then he's got two, they look like peppers or perfume bottles, two that are sitting on the ground. The reason I guess I'm drawn to the hermit is because the body complex is the key. The body complex holds all the water. Our physical existence here, this body, we're not just a shell. We are full of cellular material, viscous material, which imprints and records. So that is what I'm very drawn to. But we're just not aware of what's happening. All right.
Beautiful. But when you see smiley faces and when you see imagery, it kind of makes you feel something quite different. And so I often say, after all these years, that art is the heart of water. It loves to design. And the last person who inspired me towards this work, his name was Thomas Hieronymus. He was a radionic engineer. And one day he went into a Parisian meat market, and he observed that the freshly placed organs of an animal appeared to be affecting the way the frost froze on the glass behind where they were placed. For example, the frost would freeze into the shape of a liver organ above an actual liver organ, and so on and so forth. And his hypothesis was there appeared to be some kind of life force energy still emanating out of these organs, even though they were no longer attached to an animal. And he put that down to there being water in the blood. And so he thought that the water in the blood was somehow communicating with the water in the air, and then the water in the air was freezing into this kind of blueprint memory of the organ itself. And what encouraged me really with his observations was he was seeing these with his naked eye. They were essentially macro. And what that meant was that he was observing something on a very large scale where everybody else was using microscopes. So 9 years ago, I didn't have a microscope, but I did have a glass petri dish. I had some beautiful spring water, and I had my imagination. And I've always been one to investigate things for myself rather than believe everything I see and read. And so I really, really wanted to just understand if water could actually store information. So I put some water into a petri dish, and my idea was that I would project a thought into the water and freeze it, because the secret was in the freezing. And so I held my dish, and I was thinking about what I was going to think about, and I noticed a little bit of fluff floating around in the water. So I put my hand in to take the fluff out, consciously thinking, I wonder if my hand will have any impact on the water's quote-unquote memory, because I didn't know if that was a real thing. So I thought, well, that'll do. And I put it into my freezer with the peas and the broccoli and the ice cream and everything, and I didn't really think much more of it. Then I went about my day, and a few hours later I came back thinking, oh, there's that petri dish, let's see what it's doing. So I took it out of the freezer, and I held it up to the light, and I took a photograph on my iPhone. And that photo has launched all these thousands of photos now. And it really launched my absolute passion for this work in this field with water. What I saw that took up half of the petri dish was literally a hand in the ice. It's actually like the water uses these building blocks of ice to design. And the hand looks somewhat like an X-ray. And I have slightly crooked fingers on these two fingers. I can't even do it without pushing them down. They bend slightly. And the actual image in the ice, you can see on the same fingers, they bend. And it was so realistic that I was kind of freaked out. I was not expecting to see a hand in the ice that was so clear. And I went and I showed my son the photo, and he didn't know what I was doing. The only way I can show the photograph, I'm using my husband's computer right now, so I can only show you from my phone. So let me find it. There are many, many, many photos, and the examples are actually on my website. So you're more than welcome to go to my website and have a look, which is vedaustin.com. Here we are. So I'm going to enlarge it and show you. I don't know if you can see.
Move it a bit to one side. There you go. Yeah.
So as you can see, it looks very much like the X-ray of a hand. And so from there, after showing my son, I asked him what he thought it was, and he...
So this is really important, because before she told us the story, she said that when she was trying to, just connecting with the water and stuff, but as she went to go take the fluff out, she said something really important. She actually consciously, here, heart chakra, experience, fourth density, she consciously thought about her hand. Okay? And what happened when she consciously thought about her hand was it got imprinted. Her conscious thought got imprinted. It got imprinted in the water. Just like it gets every single thought that we have, every single thought gets imprinted in our body, in the water of our body. And the way it gets imprinted is energy. This sacred geometry that's created through transformation, sixth density, this sacred geometry is what's pulling on the potentiator. This sacred geometry is what's feeling the vibration and doing the imprints with the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind and transformation go hand in hand, in my opinion.
He said, well, it's a hand, Mum. And so after that, I went down to the beach. As I thought, if any water is going to be informed, surely it would be seawater. And when I brought the seawater back, I froze a little bit of it, and I was kind of nervous before I actually pulled that dish out of the freezer, because I thought, well, if I'm going to see something, if I see something relative to the ocean, then this means something quite unimaginable. This is massive. So as I tentatively pulled it out of the freezer and looked at it, held it up to the light and took a photograph, what I saw was this incredible fish. It had gills, it was the shape of the fish, it had a perfectly round eye, and really, I mean, it blew my mind. It was really remarkable. And so that's when my freezer really became my most used household appliance, and I started doing just test after test after test. And I can show you some examples, but they're really all, there's many on my website, and this is all from my website.
Again, move it just a bit. There we go. There, now I've got it.
See that in this one I used my friend's photograph as the influence. I placed my petri dish of water on top of her photo for 30 seconds and froze it using the technique that I've developed, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay. And you can see what I've done here. I've put the petri dish of water on top of this black and white photo. Sorry, I'm just going to turn this thing off. And it continues on and on and on. Again, people can go to my website and view all of these images. And there's a lot of different examples here, from skulls and feet and hands. And
so I will make sure that I link her website for you guys. You can have a look at her site. It's I was mind blown. Like, I'm actually ordering petri dishes from Amazon and want to start communicating with water. I'm going to clear out one of my the top part of my freezer, and I want to start playing with this. It's so intriguing.
thumbs, and there's many, many, many. I have thousands, literally. And so what I developed and what I discovered over the years was that, well, actually, it was in the first year. I was very interested in the new science of water. Dr. Gerald Pollack, he's the world's leading water scientist. He talks about this fourth phase of water, the stage between liquid and solid. And it's kind of a gel or plasma. So there's a liquid, solid, gas, and then this kind of fourth phase, which has different properties. And so I was very interested to see what was happening in the freezer as the water was freezing. So I started to open the freezer earlier and earlier and earlier. And after around about 5 minutes, I noticed that something interesting was happening. There was ice that was forming on the bottom of the petri dish, but there was liquid still on the top. So what I did was I pulled it out, and when I held it up to the light to see the crystallography, the water tipped out. And what was left was what I now term as the first freeze. So as water freezes, it freezes in layers. And the very first layer holds the most information that is most relative to the influence. I put it, an analogy is like when you were little, when I was little, we were given a piece of paper and a glue stick. And we were asked to draw a picture with the glue, and then we were given some glitter, and we would sprinkle the glitter all over the glue, and the glitter would stick to the glue. You'd hold it up, you'd shake it, and then the rest of the glitter would fall away, and you had this lovely glue and glitter picture. Well, the glue is like your conscious expression. And the first freeze is kind of like how the water that has been very attracted to your conscious expression, and that has frozen. And the liquid is akin to the glitter that falls away. And so after studying how water freezes, what you'll see is that it freezes in layers that have spaces in between. And in the workshops, because I teach people how to do this, and I did one just this morning, when you have about 2 or 3 layers, they all share information, but the most complex is always the first one. So getting that first freeze right is really, really important, and it's actually really, really simple. It's just about understanding what you're looking for. And after doing this, I started to see much more clarity in my work. And the images were more three-dimensional. They had just so much light coming through, and they looked very different than the original images that I did, where I completely froze water. Actually, when I look back at my work now, I am amazed that I got as much imagery as I did when I would completely freeze water, because I haven't done that in such a long time. So as I started to observe that water is able to design, and not just in imagery that you kind of like, maybe it looks like a cat, maybe it looks like a tree, but actually it's image recognition. So, for example, my friend and mentor, Dr. Jerry Pollack, that I mentioned earlier, he said, well, why don't you put together a survey and put maybe 25 pictures together and simply say, what does this image look like to you? And a few years ago, I did that. And I gave it to friends to circulate throughout social media so that no one knew it came from me, and no one actually knew what they were even looking at. They didn't know that it was actually ice. So I'll add that you might see colours coming through my work when you go and have a look at it. So there is such a thin layer that different colours from the background actually shine through. Because my work is threefold, it's science, it's art, and it's consciousness, I actually love that there's different colours coming through, and I really, really enjoy that. So some people like to set up a whole kind of lighting situation and same light in the background all the time, but I personally love the different colours that come through. So what I really have found as I've been kind of going along with this is that the more you do this, the more you start to realise this is actually about relationship. This isn't water just showing me that it can design. This is really about water showing up and showing that it can communicate. So when I did this the survey, 298 people filled out the survey, and 85% of people.
You know, it's really cool how she said it's showing that water can communicate. That, again, once the experience, fourth density heart chakra is open, so you have, like Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it, the mind-heart cohesiveness, this heart expands. When the heart expands and the brain, the mental plane, so this plane here, is coming from love and understanding, the communication starts coming from the sixth density, from the sacred geometry in the sixth density. That is why I believe that when Dr. Emoto was doing the love experiments on water, and you could see like sacred geometry form, it's literally this sixth density transformation communication that's happening through water. But what happens in life is our subconscious mind is programmed and filled with fears normally. This communication gets interrupted until there's heart brain cohesiveness. That's what that reminds me of. This is so cool. I'm loving everything about this lady.
Could recognize all 25 images for what the influence was prior to freezing. So if it was a picture of a cat and then a picture of a cat appeared in the ice, 85% of people could say, yes, it looks like a cat, even though they had no idea what they were looking at. And out of all of those images, there were 3 of them where 100% of people could recognize the images for what they were. So this isn't just abstract art. This is actual kind of image recognition. So if you consider this as liquid water going in, and then we're photographing the ice, and it's literally like art. It's quite remarkable. But by molecular count, not by volume, we're 99% water. And even our eye lens is 99% water. So we see the entire world through the lens of water. We're only ever a cut away from leaking, or an exercise away from sweating. And all of these different things, and yet we tend to see our body as so solid. And so really, I think there is a huge amount of information to know about what it is to be alive, because every living thing in the world is made with water. Essentially, it's actually water, salts, minerals, and consciousness of some kind. And so there's an interesting relationship.
So that's interesting. So here's the body complex, the hermit, right? All covered up. So essentially, we're made out of minerals, water, salts. Okay? And consciousness of some kind. Maybe this consciousness of some kind is from the sixth density transformation, perhaps.
Between water and salt. We're not fresh water, we're saltwater beings.
Yeah.
Salt is essentially a crystal. And when a crystal merges into water, we can't see it.
So this is really important. So if you're starting to fix up your body complex, like this hermit, so in my phase right now in spirituality, the card that I'm using the most from the Law of One Tarot is this potentiator right here. I am unclothing this potentiator. And how am I doing it? I'm fixing the pH and the homeostasis of my whole body, the meridians, the chakras. How am I doing it? Exactly what she said. The way I'm throwing off all these clothing to come back to this DNA strand inside my body is I'm cleaning my water. How am I cleaning the water? Every time I drink water, I take about 3 granules of Celtic salt with them, because we don't have enough mineral, enough salt, and salt is the conductor. So in order for this, look at the transformation. You have somebody who's fully clothed, and this is the reason I'm doing it. This is how you use Law of One Tarot to help your life and know where you are in your life. This hermit is all dressed up. Subconscious mind, okay? Look at the death card of transformation. Look at the death card. It's completely down to the bones. So you have to get here. This hermit, the subconscious mind, through transformation, you've got to get really down to the bones. How do you do it? You use this rainbow energy, vibration, your chakras. You heal the chakras. And my healing method thus far that I feel like is helping me most is I'm trying to do, it's been difficult for sure because of habit. I'm trying to break the habit, but I'm trying to eat mainly fruit juices, like real cold pressed juices, and water with mineral, with salt. I take in more sea moss. I'm just doing everything that I'm trying. Why am I doing this? For conductivity. I want my cells to be working with this death card right away. Transformations occur. Very cool.
Anymore, but it's there. It gives an electrical charge, and it gives a more saline aspect to the water, and so that becomes like a liquid crystal. And we really are liquid crystal antennas. So one of the ways in which we can talk about energy is that we have liquid water inside of us, but we often forget that there is water in the air, and the water in the air is attracted to our electrical charge. And what happens is that we almost are walking around with an entire web of information around us. That the water in the air is actually, it has a lot of information from what's going on around it and what it's exposed to and what it's picking up on. It literally is like an antenna.
You know what? This reminds me of the matrix of the mind complex of the magician, and the patterns, that yang that we were talking about. It literally reminds me of that. And remember, I was saying that there's something like air. In one of my blogs, anyways, it doesn't matter. I was talking about how could this possibly be air, like air, the air element that is influencing the potentiator here, the subconscious mind. Let's listen to what she's saying. This is so cool. I'm so blessed to be doing this and learning this. Thank you, Veda.
That information into us, into that liquid aspect of us. So it's like when you come close to somebody but you don't touch them, and you somehow feel like, oh, I feel like I know you somehow. You're really familiar to me. Or maybe you'll go into a house and it just feels like kind of creepy and you can't explain why. But there is an information exchange that is happening in the air that is being picked up by this invisible web that we have and drawn into us. So it's one of the ways in which we can feel, understand energy. So as I've started to develop this work, one of the things that many people have asked me to do is to do repeat studies. So I've often used music, because music is a wonderful thing that you can just play and it's the same song every time. Masaru Emoto did two very...
You know, the other thing I'm just thinking right now too is she's also describing the spirit complex as well of the matrix, because remember, the spirit complex is the womb. The spirit complex is the yin energy. The spirit complex is the devil card is what's holding these patterns. So the best way I describe them and can describe them is like a spider web. So we see the spider web, right? What we can see, the patterns that we see are right here, this box, the mind matrix, the mind complex of the matrix, the magician. What we don't see, like that's invisible of the matrix, the yin energy, the female part of it, the womb is of the spider web is right here. So she's kind of talking through air of this devil card as well.
Extreme music genres. He used classical music versus heavy metal, and I can almost guarantee that the person that did the heavy metal one probably didn't like heavy metal. I have never known water to be in judgment. I don't think that water is ever in any form of judgment. It's an observer. And so people tend to be in judgment. So what is interesting is that...
So that's so cool that she said that. This is so cool that she said that. So she said water's the observer, right? When do you become the observer? You become the observer in the Law of One Tarot once you, through your significant self, through your I am. Your I am is the one that can observe. That's when transformation will begin. And this observation in my spiritual journey, to be quite honest, I started to realize how quickly I was forming judgment on things, on people. That was the first thing that I started to change wholeheartedly, was I don't want to form any sort of judgment. Because that judgment, when I realized what I was doing, was imprinting me, my water. And when I started changing and observing myself and started coming from a place of love and understanding towards everybody, that judgment that I had, it's pretty much gone. I mean, I'm human. I'm going to judge here and there, but I catch it. And when you catch it, I just say to myself, I take that out of the law. And the reason I take it out of the law, I take it out of the law of this mental plane so that it doesn't influence my subconscious mind, This is awesome. So I think what I'll do is, this is going to be a long video. I'll do a part 2 of this for sure. Or should I just keep it going?
Because my son, he's 21 this year, but a few years ago he was saying, well, I don't like classical music. Does that mean that the water is like hating it when I'm like driving along and listening to Tupac and listening to my rap and stuff? And I'm like, no, water's not in judgment. And so I went on this journey to try all different genres of music to see what water might do and how it might respond. And what I observed is that water seemed to pick up on a word. For example, one of the songs which really has set me off on a 4-year journey for the last 4 years with something that I call hydroglyphs, was the song called Stairway to Heaven. And what I observed was that I would see the stairway appear in the ice. It was quite remarkable. And because I repeated that song and repeated that test around about 12 times, and each time I saw a stairway in the ice. And I began to wonder, if that actually means stairway. And so I wrote the word stairway, and I will say that water picks up on, doesn't read words, it reads the energy of words. So many people say it can understand different languages or symbols. And so, of course, because I've also done those tests using different languages and using symbols, but what I would say is that it's really important to remember that water is picking up on the energy of everything.
See? It's your vibe, man. So in order to change any sort of vibration, this is it. It's the experience, it's 4th density. In order to change anything on this 3rd density unconscious plane, one must make the choice. Remember, catalyst is self-awareness and choice. Catalyst is your choice card. Remember, it's not on here. The most important card in this deck, it's not, I don't even have it on here. I'm going to have to get it. But it's what most people call the Fool card, but Ra calls it the Choice card. It's the 0. I believe that the Choice card is actually the divine itself. And it's a card all on its own. But I often pair it up here with 3rd density unconscious mind. We have to make a choice to become conscious. We have to make that choice through self-awareness. How do you come to self-awareness? Through observation, through your true I am. And then further, if you want to influence your subconscious mind and start becoming a master manifester in your life, you have to do it through love and understanding for self. You have to love on the unconscious mind. You've got to observe the feelings that come through your organs, the emotions that are created through chemical reactions of your organs. You've got to love on that. And once you love and you understand and you start letting go of the negative emotions, because you're like, yeah, that's not me anymore. Thank you, organs. This is how I talk to myself. And I say, thank you, organs, like so much. This fear that you just put inside of me, I am aware of it, but this ain't me anymore. I'm going to choose choice. I'm going to choose organs to really feel good. I'm going to release a little bit of oxytocin because I know how now, because I'm taking in the salt, water, and I'm keeping hydrated as much as I can, as best as I can, doing all the right things. I know I'm influencing my own chemical reaction through my own mind. This mind is now doing what I want for this body complex. What am I doing it through? I am doing it through controlling emotions, spirit complex. Quite possibly, Matthias de Stefano says there's an emotional plane. Maybe it is the spirit complex. I thought it was the body complex. Maybe it is the spirit complex. Maybe I'm controlling the body complex, the materialization, the systems, the molecules, the atoms that have created my organs, the way my meridians run. Maybe I am able, through the spirit complex, all 7 of these cards, now I can say, through love and understanding for self, I am able to influence my body complex, and this wheel of choice, or wheel of fortune people call it, I am controlling the spin. All right, let's continue this on, I'll do a part 2. I love you guys so much. See you in part 2.